for me, I didn't fit anywhere, but my visions brought me to my visions of astrology when I had Neptune on the icy tremendously affected me. And over the next number of years, I built up the school of astrology. I built up colored charts with making color charts. I designed a visual. I designed a musical instrument to play a horoscope, and I actually built it. And then I've been doing CDs and recording with it ever since. So this was all very foundational. I had very mystical visions that weren't practical at all, but in a way, they really affected my creativity and my expressions during this whole period from Neptune going through the 4th, 5th, and 6th house. At the same time, there were other things going on in my life, but that was an inner thing that I believed in that had an effect for me. Okay. So you'll see yours, and you have to go and you've got to figure it out. You looked at the things, and hopefully you keep adding these things into your spreadsheet history, so you have things in the right dates, things that happen, and then you begin to expand around. You see when you're spaced out what relationships you had, where were you living. For me, it was traveling or moving or being in different countries. At each point, I was in another country, one in India, one in China. Neptune on the icy, Neptune on the descendant. My Neptune starts in the 2nd house, so went down that way. But I could take it further as Neptune went down through the 2nd house over my sun, then down through my 3rd house. It was going through school, but I had certain beliefs about what I would know, and I was going for chemistry, math. I dropped out of school. My family split up. I was on my own. I dropped out of school, and I went from trying to be a scientist to starting to write poetry and reading and writing in a different way and traveling as Neptune went through my 3rd house. So you'll be able to see these working out, but this main angle is the main thing. Then you can see the houses, how Neptune's causing puzzles, and how it will embellish this basic cycle going around. We're looking for you're just seeing it for a whole lifetime, and there's only two aspects you're going to get, maybe 3, but I got the 2. I won't get it up to my mid-heaven, but I believe the visions I had might have some relevance to other people more if I figure out how to do it differently. Okay. So all of it's the same structure. Part of I'm trying to think the same way. The conjunction, squares, oppositions, so it's the main things. Everything else is add-ons into it. You have Neptune to itself, Neptune to the sun, to your goals and your purpose, Neptune to the angles. These are the main things. But Neptune, because it's such a strong influence, when it touches the other planets, of the moon or Mercury or Venus or Mars, it's going to have it's going to really significantly show. Now, when Neptune I didn't do my Neptune to Jupiter or Saturn. I didn't have it made as a graph for this time because they're more, we'll talk about them at the end, but they're not as specific. When you see the outer planet touching the inner planet, it really, the outside world and our beliefs in it really has a strong influence on the moon, the Mercury, the Venus, the Mars. It can affect our understanding, but it's hard to measure the understanding. It's hard to be specific around it. We'll usually see it in context to these interpersonal planets. So Neptune to itself, Neptune to the sun, Neptune to the angles. Basically, if you know someone's birthday, you can know Neptune to their sun. Just their age, route to Neptune to Neptune. Neptune to the angles, you have to know their time, but then you get all the other planets to go along with it. So when Neptune hits the moon, these are going to, whoops, no, that's not the one I want. That's my story about it. I'm sorry. That's my story, but that's not Neptune to the moon. That's the one I want is sun. Oh, there we go. Neptune to the moon. So you have the theory, then you have how you experienced it. Okay. Okay, here we go. Good. Okay. So when Neptune's going to hit your moon, what's your moon? It's your memory. It's your ability to reflect. It's your basic habits in life, your basic instincts, your day-to-day habits, your waking, your regular eating or not regular eating, what you're eating. It's your sleeping. It's your basic rhythm of being awake, sleeping, eating, functioning, and all the basic habits you have. Now, how many people have more good habits than bad? How many people have more bad habits than good? But you have to have some certain things. If you don't eat, you don't live. If you don't drink, you don't. If you don't sleep, like these things will accumulate. If you're having 20 cups of coffee a day, you're not going to last that long. Like it's just your habits is such a huge thing, and every day you're living your habits for better or worse. It's hardly a standard, it's steady, it's moving around, but we're living our day. We eat, give us this day our daily bread, so to speak. We get up, we eat, we do something, we have lunch, we have to do something, we have a break, we take tea or something, we have supper, we eat. If you're rich enough to have food, or we're searching for it, but we're having to survive the day, wake up, get through the day, whatever's happening, see how much it gets, and then prepare for getting back to trying to find a place to sleep when you crash. And it gets more complicated if you have to do that with 2 or 3 kids. So you look at the world, more people are living in war, depressing, poverty-stricken, famine-stricken areas where there's no food and people are dying and there's no place to sleep. They're crashing wherever. They got their kids starving to death in their arms. Like there's not enough. So that's an extreme of negative food. Those are Neptune, Pluto scenarios affecting moons, but it's affecting the world, and whole number, millions of people are starving. Those millions of people are going to have all 12 different moon signs. They're all going to have different relationships to Neptune. Some will, as Neptune would hit, would weaken it and make it much more sick. Some might be stronger and might survive it. So you can't just, you see the personal story inside whatever situation. In our little buffered world, living in our ivory tower of white North America, or of colonialized, that would be a better word than white, colonialized security in the British Empire and North America, Canada, States. It's like we're the leaders and everything else is for us to take, but it's not a real, it's its own illusion. It has its own gullibility for being in that space, but we live day-to-days within that. So we get up, we have our breakfast, we go grab a coffee on our way to work, and we do our work, we have a lunch, same thing, everywhere in the world. Get up, eat something, go do something, work, you have lunch, you work as far as you can, you have supper, you come back, you go to sleep. And in the meantime, if you got kids, you make sure they're eating, they're doing things that doubles the pressure up. So how many kids you have, how many habits you have, how many good habits you have, how many bad habits, how many cups of coffee, how many cigarettes, how much drinking, how many bad habits you have that add on to this are going to affect your moon. So you can get away with moon things for a long time, but when Neptune starts to hit your moon, it's going to cause a lot of confusions, and it's going to cause reactions, allergies, sicknesses, vulnerabilities. It's going to weaken the habit patterns. It's going to tempt. You get to think, I can do this, I can get away with anything. It's like, boy, these are points where you can get into really addictive behavior, be caught with your addictive behavior, independencies that are starting messing up your day-to-day living and your ability to remember things. In Canada, they just made marijuana illegal. So now nobody's going to get arrested for just holding it, but now a whole generation is going to grow up thinking they can just smoke up or whatever, and they're going to have to run through the problems our generation ran through from alcohol. They're going to run through it with alcohol and marijuana, and it's going to affect memories and ability to recall things and attitudes to day-to-day living. So usually it's best to be sharp, alert, and alive and awake to things. And every time we eat, we don't eat right, we dull our alertness, we dull our habits, we dull our alertness to the moment, and therefore we're blurring our memories, or we're taking bad habits. So every experience we have, every food we eat, everything we eat gets pushed into our stomach, into our memories, and it affects our body. And then if we keep repeating that, we keep this dull level, we don't keep alive, alert things coming into our life. So our health, our lifestyle, our homes, our families, our security, our feelings, our stomachs, our breasts. So these are all things that are tied to me, but really it's your memory. And if you're not remembering properly, how do you make proper decisions? If you're in a confused home situation or you're in a dependent situation, how are you going to think clearly? How are you going to figure a way out of these bad habits, confusing habits? So usually when Neptune hits the moon, there's going to be questionable Neptune sympathies. There's going to be confusions. You're caring for a kid and they're in trouble, or you're in trouble and you're not able to care for your kids, or you don't have kids, you wish you did, you have too many and you wish you didn't, you have an unreliable partner, or partner's doing drugs, or you're doing it, and the partner, or someone's having an affair, or daughter's getting pregnant, or the kid's getting all sorts of things. It's Wow, how do you feel? Neptune, because the moon is a feminine planet, there's no edge to how you reflect and feel on things. Neptune comes in and magnifies those feelings to an extreme. So if you're feeling depressed, Neptune's going to come and magnify that depression. If you're feeling sad, it's going to magnify the sorrow. If you're feeling needy, it's going to magnify the neediness. So if that neediness is around, I need more affection, or I need to be with you, or you're in a one-sided relationship, you're trying to live for that, it's going to magnify that way out of proportion. This is an extreme planet, one of the most outer planets touching the most personal one, the fastest moving one. It has a huge weight and affects our behavior. So many addictions, many sicknesses, illnesses, weaknesses, confusions of how we're living on a basic level come up with Neptune hitting your moon. It's going to be, it only makes sense as you get the texture of a person's life and how their story is unfolding, and they say, oh, here comes look, Neptune came in and messed up that for a while. So when it's there, you're already lost. If you're overweight and Neptune comes along through your moon, it's going to put on more weight. If you're doing drugs or alcohol and you're trying to break it, you're not going to break the habit with Neptune squaring it. You're going to indulge it more, squaring, opposed, or conjunction. It's going to go further. Neptune doesn't have breaks. It's not fixed like that. It just tempts, enhances, it increases, it magnifies, it distorts. And the moon doesn't have defenses against that. The only defenses you can have with the moon is by maintaining basic. If you have Saturn moon, you might have a better chance at dealing with Neptune factors because you at least will maintain certain disciplined habits. But sometimes you don't want disciplined habits. You want to live for a dream. You want to leave the family and go for here. You want to have this affair. You want to have, it's too tempting. It's too incredible. I have to take this. I'll leave whatever. But as it settles, by the time the Neptune lifts, you look back and say, what was I doing? Where was I? And have it start over. So if you're living in a bad situation, Neptune will come and make it worse till it dissolves and falls apart. But in the process, there's so many guilts, sorrows, complications, expectations, these dependencies, escape issues that come up. Each person has a million choices of how they're going to, I shouldn't say deal with it, how they're going to navigate through this, or try to avoid, how long they can avoid navigating through this. But it's costly every time you don't eat something good, something bad, it's going into your body. It's going to accumulate. It's going to have its cost. Every day it has its cost, but you add it up over years, it piles up, and these Neptune turns are the points where it goes out of control and gets sad. So the sorrow can come from dependencies with family members, with people close to you. It's the moon. It's people you live with. It's your feelings. It's your habits. It's how you reflect on things and the memories you're making. So these are guilt-ridden, confusing, tempting, sad, and really each of these points need compassion, but you can't save someone from their Neptune. You can be compassionate or empathetic and try to guide them to simplicity, to not making it worse, not increasing guilt, not increasing sorrow, not increasing dependency. Suppose someone had this abusive relationship to their mom or their dad, and it's always been there. There was abuse, and they still get pulled in, they still get pulling in, and Neptune's coming up to it. You know they're going to get pulled in again. How far it goes, who knows? But the dependencies, if you go in, how do you get out? Maybe you have to go in to see how bad it is so you can get out and never get there again, or maybe you decide to help other people who had that, or just heal yourself. So the idea of healing commence is there. The idea of escaping is there too. So you have dreams with Neptune. Say you're going to get two of these hits: the conjunction or the square or the opposition and the square and the conjunction. So depending which way this goes, you're going to start with one, and it's going to come. If you get the opposition first, it's hard to explain how could this possibly happen. If you get the conjunction first, you can probably see how you may have set it in motion. I get the square first, and then I got the opposition, and I'll never get the conjunction. But at each point, something's not the same. It gets confused. So at the conjunction, you have the dream of security, belief in your habits. You believe I got to live like this. You know, if you're smoking up, say, well, this is so nice. How could this be wrong? How could this hurt anybody? Why shouldn't it be there? And you align, you get involved, and still the majority side thinks it's wrong, but you're in a bubble that's not thinking it's wrong. And all these things connect. Maybe it's not wrong, but there's people, different beliefs, different habits running into each other, and it gets complicated.